I'm going to add some clouds to this background, so I thought I'd show you how I'm doing it. I did a base coat that was a pale blue in the center section, actually all the way around, and then while it was still wet, I added just a little bit of a slightly darker color to sort of frame the page. And then I'll let that dry. Now I have a little bit of white acrylic and a damp sea sponge. It's damp, but it's not wet, so I can't squeeze any water out of it. And I'm just going to add a little bit of paint to the tips of this, which you can see is a pretty broad texture. And I always try to test this out on my palette, just so that I don't go directly from paint onto the page and end up with blobs of paint. So I'm going to take a little paint and then I'm going to test it out. And this is where I'm going to take my paint from for the rest of the page. So paint on the tip and no paint on the back end. And what I'm going to do is pat this on and then use the back end of the sponge to blend it into the page. So let me do it on this side so you can see what I'm doing. Pat this onto the page and then use the wet end without paint on it to blend it in. And that way I get a nice blend right in here and a little bit of bright white right there. So let me do some right here. Try and go across the divide here. And then, like this is pretty soft right here, I can come back and add just a little bit more white if I want more. Like right here, I'd like some more white. And let me shift this over so you can see and my hand's not in the way. That's maybe a little bit too much white. So I'm going to blend. So I'm just working back and forth. And I've done all of this with one dip into the paint. So it really doesn't take very much paint to do clouds. A lot of times I see people do this the first couple of times and they'll do it with too much paint. It really doesn't take very much at all. So I'm going to go back and get a little bit more. So I kind of want this to be a little more opaque. I don't want quite as much of the words showing through. So, and that happens with just adding another layer of white and then blending it. I don't want to obliterate the words completely, but I'd like them to recede into the background a little bit more. Another key to doing this is letting there be a little bit of breathing space that doesn't have clouds in it. That's just completely blue. Otherwise, you end up with a sky that's completely cloudy and it looks like kind of a mess. So I'm going to leave this. And once this dries, I can move on with the rest of the work I'm going to do on the page.